We've alluded to it. You know who it was going to be. Whenever the big off-season rumor that Mark and I both said, there's no way that's happening. That sounds insane. But Perks coming over to Cloud9, and based on how Cloud9 looked for 80% of 2020, even with Licorice leaving and Fudge, an unproven commodity on the big LCS stage, I just can't not put this team at number one. Come on.
I got to start with saying I want to make sure we get to this point later on talking about Cloud9 to talk about the disappointment and how things fell apart last year, because that certainly cannot be ignored. But when you were talking about Cloud9 and you're talking about them being our number one ranked team in the LCS heading into this year, it is all about Perks, baby. Perks heading over to NA, joining Cloud9, joining up again with Sven and Mithy. It is time for North American G2 to reign supreme.
Yeah, C9 gray, I guess. G2 blue. I don't know which one works better. But yeah, seeing all those guys reunited is going to be great. Perks is immediately the most compelling and going to be the most beaten to death storyline throughout all of the LCS. But I mean, Blabber and Perks are just a nightmare matchup for 9 other teams in the LCS. No question.
Look, if 9 other teams in the LCS could not figure out how to really stop Blabber and Niski as a duo, right? That took multiple months to figure out how to really get on top of that, or even, find a way to neutralize it to any type of degree. Now you're adding in a player like Perks, the individual capabilities of someone like him, and let alone the individual capabilities, as we've seen playing with a star-studded G2 roster, the ability to communicate, to match up, to read the synergy between other players on the roster and back it up when it needs to happen. Hey, this is Perks time, baby. We're going to see a show.
And, I mean, the rest of Cloud9, the core members, Blabber, Sven and Vulcan, obviously, when things ended in playoffs, a lot of it was talking about draft. You had the Ezreal Yumi that was getting picked time and time again for Cloud9. There were questions, why aren't they playing Caitlyn? And that coaching staff is something we'll have to talk about as well, because Reaper has been there for 5+ years at the helm of that squad, and now Reignover is stepping in. Throw in, just more Sven and Reignover played together against each other in 2015 in that great Fnatic Origin rivalry. There's so many EU roots on this Cloud9 roster, but we'll see if some of that pick, ban, draft stuff is fixed up in 2021, and whether... I hate just fully putting the blame on coaches whenever drafting goes wrong, because players have probably an even bigger say on what's being picked.
And from the very little that we've heard from someone like Reignover since this change has happened, since he's moved towards that coaching role with Cloud9, this seems like someone that was really studying under, the apprentice of someone like Reaper, right? Learning from him, picking up certain things. So I don't know if it's going to be a complete departure from what we have seen with Reaper, with Cloud9 in the past, and some of those, ideas, some of those, mentalities that they approach into the game drafts. But at the same time, you said it, right? This is another change that they're going to have to be going through. And those are the things that they need to be answering for, because not only the coaching staff, but even the individual execution could be put under the spotlight as far as what went wrong with Cloud9 to end the year. And look, as much as we are super excited, Perks, Blabber, what's going to happen there? Even with that, and even if that goes extremely well, there are other things that need to happen in order for Cloud9 to be at this level, to be at the very top of the LCS, given what we've talked about with teams like a Team Liquid. Hell, even, if teams like TSM or 100 Thieves are hitting their absolute potential and peak, that's the push that we're looking at the top of the LCS. And if you're not getting, if Fudge is not performing to the level that we're expecting that he is going to be able to provide at the LCS, that's going to be an issue for Cloud9. And if Sven and Vulcan are still struggling in the days of what we had, as you said, the Ezreal Yumi pairing that seemed just out of the meta at the time, that ain't going to cut it either. And it certainly is something where, look, you'll pick up a couple wins just off of the back of how good Perks is. Add in a couple more because of Blabber and Perks, and I'm sure there's going to be some good synergy there. But to keep adding on to those wins with what's going to be happening, you're going to need the full team effort still.
And because Perks, rightfully so, honestly, steals all these headlines, the Fudge change just kind of goes under the radar. Obviously, Licorice was one of the most consistent players over the last 3 years on Cloud9. Fudge, incredibly hyped up from the academy scene, was clearly the best top laner throughout all of 2020 in that league. But man, for your rookie split, you're stepping on a team that not only are probably the favorites to win the LCS, but you're expecting them to compete internationally, and you're a rookie stepping into these shoes. It's a little similar to when Licorice originally came in. You have to replace Impact. You're going to be going to Worlds as Cloud9. You're vying for a title. That's a lot of pressure for a rookie.
Yeah, and again, I understand that Fudge is quote kind of a rookie in the quote unquote type of sense, right?
He's
of
still
course,
only 18 years old.
Right. That is the thing that I think a lot of people are missing when they try to bring up that point, right? Is to diminish really again. Yeah, there is still some greenness to someone like Fudge and what's going to happen, even considering some of the early experiences that he's gained, whether playing with the OPL domestically or even getting that international chance that we've seen with him. This is going to be interesting because, look, you got to compete. You got to be able to step up right away, right from the get-go. And it's going to be one of those things, as I said, not only, getting the wins from Perks and Blabber, but you're going to have to rely on some games where Fudge is going to be an important player in those team fights, in that late game, whatever it's going to be. He has to be able to carry certain parts of this team. And you're going to be going up against the likes of Alfari that we've said going to have to deliver.
Alfari, someday, Huni, 3 games out of 18. There's still some fantastic top lane talent. Most of them not actually from North America, but there are still some more than capable lane opponents that Fudge is going to have to go up against. I will say, and we've talked about this before, he seems incredibly confident, which is great. In the Perks announcement video, when Perks says, I don't know much about Fudge, he's praising, I love Sven, played with him, Blabber and Vulcan are great. Fudge, I don't know something about him, but if he's no good, I'll just play top. And then Fudge, bounces back. He bites back and says, if this guy can't play mid, I'll just play mid. Love it. And that Perks will love somebody with that level of confidence.
Yeah, you got to be able to meme back at Perks. You know that he's always willing to dish it out, and he's someone that's looking for that response back. Love to see it from someone like Fudge. I'm just really hoping that this reuniting of the G2 members on Cloud9, especially Sven and Mithy, I'm hoping that this Sven and Mithy trip in North America goes a little better than the first one.
Yeah, and I would say it's hard to be worse, but it absolutely could be much worse. For TSM, all the flack that they got those years, they were still a perennial playoff team and close to a title a couple of times. It was just the expectation for TSM was so incredibly high, and of course there were some questionable Tom Kenschalties, some questionable Ezreal plays from Sven. So those are the moments that stick with people. But we quickly forget how well Sven bounced back on Cloud9 after those TSM splits.
Yeah, I think as much as we meme and as much as we talk about, obviously, the end of last year with the Ezreal Yuumi not working out, easy to forget that for multiple weeks, and I'm not talking just like, 2, 5, we're talking like 8, 10, 12 weeks long. This dude was not dying. He was playing at an extraordinary level, higher than obviously anybody in the LCS, but arguably higher than almost any other ADC at the time was what we were seeing from Sven. And certainly, as you said, I think even with those misplays and downtimes with TSM, you'd be looking at Sven as having a pretty darn successful transition to North America from what he was doing in EU. Mithy, that's a separate story. And, hey, he's in a separate position now, and I think that tells as much of the story you need to know.
And I think a lot of the reason for Cloud9's downfall was I just feel like they felt like they could turn a switch on because they had dominated for so long. It was just whatever. We're better than them. We'll bounce back, and they did it. Now I expect them to be pushed a lot more by a squad like Team Liquid, and they learned from that. I don't see that being an issue this year, especially with a guy like Perks coming over.
And even outside of someone like Team Liquid to really push them. And as you said, I think really the big difference is someone like Perks. I think that's what he wants, his winning drive, his, the desire to compete. That'll absolutely do it right away from the beginning. That's the switch that you're talking about is flipped on for Cloud9 right away to start. And then you add in, of course, the extra pressure from someone like Team Liquid, which last year, not impressive from the very start. Remember the very poor spring results.
I remember.
Exactly. And so now we're talking about a team that should be right up at the very top, should be playing at a high level, should be pushing Cloud9 to play even stronger than they are, pushing them to their very limits. And then even at that point, even if you want to go, okay, but that's just one team. I'm telling you, my man, you could look into their top 5 power rankings that we've done and look at the peak of potential talking about those teams. And I tell you what, it's the LCS, my man. they're going to hit it at least for 1 week. And you better believe that Cloud9 is going to be ready to answer with the likes of Perks.
Hopefully brighter days ahead for the LCS, but for now, Cloud9 coming in that top spot for our power rankings in the preseason.